BMW had a V10 M5, Audi had an RS4 here with a V8 and a manual. Dodge came out with SRT then. They had the Charger, the Magnum, all that stuff came out at that era.
R8.
Obviously the Ford GT, the Audi R8 came out in that era. That's a great one.
GT.
Everybody did it. I think the 2000s will go down. I've always said this, but I think the 2000s will go down as the 60s of our generation.
Hey, so I think the great inflection point then is the dual clutch.
The dual clutch, which I think is one of the great automotive innovations in terms of drivability and enjoyment, and it actually killed it all. Because once the dual clutch showed up, these automakers couldn't justify producing slower manuals. It was the last thing that held them back, was the torque converter was slower. And so like a manual was still a faster option. And then the dual clutch showed up. And Porsche was like, why would we make manuals anymore? BMW was like, why? Ferrari, Lamborghini, they were just done. They were out. They were like, this is faster. It's one thing to develop. We're done. And that was the end at the beginning of the end.
That's a reasonable story for the 2010s.
Nothing good came out of the 80s.
Right. He makes this assertion that no good cars came out of the 1980s.
That's the thing about that argument that I make. All the good 80s cars either came out in like 89 or the 70s. And when you say, okay, name a car that came out in the 80s that was great, the early to mid 80s that was great. The C4 Corvette? Nope. That ain't gonna be it. The funny thing about the C4 Corvette, it actually became a pretty good car in the 90s.
Yeah.
What about the first gen Taurus?
My case is rested, my point is proven.